Thomas Clarkson has been called up to the British and Irish Lions squad. He joins the squad in Brisbane and has been described as additional training cover. So what is going on here? Is there something we're not being told about a potential fitness concern over a tight head prop that Andy Farrell's keeping close to his chest? Or, I mean, there have been accusations that Andy Farrell is kind of misusing his power as Lions head coach to aid the development of the Irish national team. And that accusation comes because in the space of 24 hours, you've had Thomas Clarkson added to the squad and Jamie Osborne also called up into the squad to provide a little bit of cover with the concern over Blair Kinghorn. That was when Jamie Osborne was called up. Is there any merit in the suspicion that this is favouring Ireland? And it's ruffled a few feathers. I'd be very interested to know what you think. I'll certainly give you my opinion. Get stuck in the comments. If you appreciate the content on the channel, give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe. So that's the 5th player that's been called into the squad. Let me rattle through them. First off, it was Ben White in for Thomas Williams. Then, well, most recently, not in chronological order, but Jamie George has come in for Luke Cowan-Dickie. Owen Farrell after Elliot Daly. Jamie Osborne, not strictly speaking replacing anyone, but with the concern over Blair Kinghorn's return to fitness. And now Thomas Clarkson. My best guess about what's going on with Thomas Clarkson, or at least what's going on with calling up a tight head prop, is that there is maybe a slight fitness concern over Tadhg Furlong. Not to say he's injured, not to say he won't complete the test series, but just coming into the tour, he had a recurring, niggling calf injury, which meant he was, they were thinking he was going to make his comeback for Leinster and then he wasn't. And then, so it's obviously something that the physios have been working on. It takes 2 steps forward, then 1 step back. Fortunately for the Lions, given tight head prop is one of the weakest positions in the squad, Tadhg Furlong is fit and available. Looks like he's going to start the first test, and that's great news. But here's the situation. Let's just war game a scenario. Tadhg Furlong plays in the first test. Following that test, there's a bit of a tightening of the calf. Physios are a little bit concerned. They've obviously been monitoring it in training. And let's say he's not going to be available for test 2. What then? Well, Will Stewart or Finlay Bealham will be starting the second test. And one of them is going to have to be on the bench in the midweek game. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. Particularly because of how important tight head prop is in rugby. I was going to say in professional rugby, but it's always been the case. There's that famous phrase by that legendary South African coach, Danny Craven. It was the most important player in your team is the tight head prop. The second most important player in your team, the reserve tight head prop. So with that importance, maybe there's a bit of precaution. Like, we just need to keep Tadhg Furlong wrapped in cotton wool. You all right? So I'm at my brother's, and is that a fox or a rabbit or something? Anyway, I'm at my brother's house in London doing some work on TalkSport tomorrow. That's why I'm not in my normal surroundings. But where was I? Yes, tight head prop. If they wanted to just wrap Tadhg Furlong in cotton wool and get him through the test matches and the series and not have to play in midweek, but also make sure if he cannot play, you've got your second best tight head prop also good to go. You don't want them in midweek. Maybe just as a total precaution, you want someone there who's up to speed, good to go. We can talk about the merits of Thomas Clarkson over other players in just a second, and I will get into that, but I suspect that is what's going on. Oi! Right, so the accusation that there is some sort of something fishy going on with Andy Farrell's picks. Let's dissect that a little bit. So Jamie Osborne, Leinster, young Irish up-and-coming star, and Thomas Clarkson, Leinster, young Irish up-and-coming star. I see why people have put 2 and 2 together, but I think they're making 5. Ben White was his first call-up in for Thomas Williams, Scottish. And also, I think most people would have thought that Ben White, I mean, I had him in my squad when I was picking the squad. I totally understand why Andy Farrell went for Thomas Williams and Alex Mitchell. It was a close-run thing, but no one's thinking there's anything dodgy going on with Ben White's call-up, so why with some of the other ones? He was a 50-50 call from the start. Jamie George, one of the most recent call-ups at hooker, another 50-50 call. You thought it was going to be like Luke Cowan-Dickie, Ronan Kelleher and Jamie George. 2 of them were going to get in, one is going to be out. Jamie George, the unlucky one, well, he's there now. So again, 2 for 2 so far. Call-ups by Andy Farrell that make complete sense and are really obvious and no one's got a problem with. This is, I think people are piecing together Thomas Clarkson, Jamie Osborne and Owen Farrell going Leinster, nepotism, and created a narrative that there's something dodgy going on. I don't get it. I don't get it. I think, here's the thing. There's been a lot of people following the game against that AU and NZ, that Anzac Invitational 15. There's a lot of people that have now said, actually, now I've seen Owen Farrell play, fair enough, he is legit, and he might well be involved on the bench in test 2 or 3. A lot of people are starting to talk like that. Some people are even, Ronan O'Gara has him in his squad on the bench for test 1 if he was picking. And with that being the case, I think that in and of itself vindicates the selection of Owen Farrell as a replacement for Elliot Daly. A lot of people had their eyebrows raised. It was Dan Biggar called it baffling that Owen Farrell was called up to replace Elliot Daly, who plays 13-15 wing. But what many people have said, and which Dan Biggar overlooked on that occasion, is that what Elliot Daly brought in the squad was, yes, a bit of versatility, which Owen Farrell brings with 10-12. Different versatility, but versatility nonetheless. And, there's also the point that Keenan and Kinghorn, when Elliot Daly went out, hadn't played a single minute, and so they needed to play all the minutes available, so they were kind of covered at fullback. Obviously, the picture has changed there a little bit with Kinghorn's concern and Osborne's come in, but I'll get onto that. But the other thing Elliot Daly brings is experience of previous Lions tours. And there are some people in the squad that were there in 2021, but that was a COVID-affected Lions squad. Very, very different. As a lot of these players have found out, there's been a lot of talk about fatigue and travel exhaustion, the schedule, not a lot of training and a lot of resting. Hardly any of the squad knew what that felt like because they've never done it before. Elliot Daly, one of the very few players that did. Only Maro Itoje, Tyg Furlong and Elliot Daly understand that. They're the only 3 people in the squad that was selected that know what that feels like. Elliot Daly's gone, so the only player in the back line that knows what that feels like, Owen Farrell, has come in. He has that experience, and that is what he replaces. But on the merits of how he's playing, he's done really well. So as far as I'm concerned, 3 picks out of 3 make total sense. Jamie Osborne makes total sense, even more now Gary Ringrose has failed an HIA. You wonder how much Andy Farrell already had Gary Ringrose in his mind, as well as a potential backup at fullback in his mind when he picked Jamie Osborne. Because I can understand people going, Jamie Osborne, but what about Blair Murray? What about Tom Jordan? If it's a fullback that he's covering for, then what's the problem? Well, 2 things on that. One, at fullback, I watched Jamie Osborne. I was in South Africa and watched Ireland play in a test match and win in Durban against South Africa, the world champions in their own backyard, and Jamie Osborne was the fullback. So he's got it. He has got it on merit. But secondly, when he called up Jamie Osborne as a backup for Blair Kinghorn, I think he was also calling him up as a backup for Gary Ringrose. And Jamie Osborne was named to play at 13 for Ireland against Portugal yesterday. And he's played international 15. I think it's an obvious call. He can also play on the wing if there were lots of injuries there. I don't think he's needed for that. But 13 and 15, there's your man. Makes total sense. And so then we come to Thomas Clarkson. Who else would you have picked? I'll tell you, I wouldn't have picked Thomas Clarkson. I'd have gone for Joe Hayes of England. I might have gone for Asher Opoku for Jaw. He might have been another contender. I might have even gone for Kyle Sinclair. But other than that, who else? Who are the other contenders? Is there someone really obvious I'm missing? Yes, if Xander Fagerson was fit again, then I think he would have been on the plane, obviously, and been in the squad. And remember when Andy Farrell picked the squad of 38, he said there's a couple of spots for players who can prove their fitness and get on the tour. And I think the 2 people he had most in mind when he said that was Owen Farrell and Xander Fagerson. And if Xander Fagerson had got back to fitness, I think he would have been out here. So I think obviously Xander Fagerson's not able to, but now the test series has come around. Now Ireland have played their matches. I think he's called Thomas Clarkson up as a backup for the reason that I talked about earlier. Tyg Furlong is touch and go, has been for a while on his return, and one little twinge of his calf and his tour could be done. And tight head prop stocks are probably the worst out of every position in the squad. There's not loads of players out there. And yes, I would have gone for Joe Hayes. But I can understand why he's gone for Thomas Clarkson. I'm not saying it's obvious. How could he not pick Joe Hayes? I can't believe he's picked Thomas Clarkson. I'm like, yeah, Thomas Clarkson's had a really strong end to the year. He's been good when he's played for Ireland. He's played in big matches for Leinster and done well. So I totally get it. And I don't think Joe Hayes or Ashrapoku Fajor or Kyle Sinclair, or I'm trying to think if there's a Welsh player that, or a Scottish player, I can't think of one. I don't think anyone's been hard done by. So I get it. And I don't get the bizarre accusation that Andy Farrell is being biased or there's some hidden agenda going on, a conspiracy. So no, I'm not buying that if that's what you're selling, but that's just my thoughts. And I am happy to be argued round. If you can make a case for it, please do let me know in the comments. I'll be really interested to hear, and let's have a chat there. It'd be boring if we all thought the same, wouldn't it? So let me know what you reckon, and I'll see you on the next video.